Hello and good morning, good afternoon and a very good evening to you, the good old people of the tube. Hope you're today, hope you're feeling grand and all is well in your world. Hello there everybody. Welcome to another Q&A Wednesday everybody. Let's dive into question one. Question one part A. I don't really know how to answer, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Damn it, I'm going to try. I'm going to try my hardest, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least I tried. Alright, so question one today is, question one part A. Is what matters the most in a hybrid amp to get a valve tube tone. So what matters the most in a hybrid? So that's an amp with a little preamp valve. What matters the most? I don't know. I really don't know the answer to this question. The problem I have with hybrid amps, when it comes down to it, it's kind of like along the lines of like, I always wanted to kind of know how much that little preamp valve, that ECC83 or whatever you have in your amp, is actually doing to the sound of the amplifier. Because, for instance, I know on the Marshall VS, it only works on the overdrive circuit. It's not actually doing anything on the clean channel. Or sort of red, anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, people of the tube. But as far as I know, in like something like a valve state Marshall, the ECC83 or preamp valve only works on the distortion channels, OD1, OD2. And does it add anything? Excuse me. I don't know, because it's a real weird thing, because I find it hard to believe that such a little, just one valve on its own, like a tiny little preamp valve, can do a great deal. I can believe it does something, definitely, but I can't believe it does what a full valve amp does, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, the way the amp powers, if that makes any sense, and kind of like, you know, it gets a sound out, if that makes any, I don't know if that makes any sense. Because like, if you put it on a graph, I'd love to know kind of like what the percentage is. Like, you know, is it like 60% solid state? Is it 40% valve? Or is it, you know, whatever? You know, I don't actually know. But I really don't know what... I would say it just comes down to more how the amp's voiced and what its components are more than anything. Because, again, I'm not really a big kind of like valve tone chaser kind of guy. You know what I mean? I found my sound a long time ago in the Marshall MGs. And then that thing as well. And then Boss Katanas, which are kind of like my three main amps. So those three amps are kind of like, they're my voice, they're my home. And I say they're all solid state. So when it comes down, because I never, having had a Plexi JSM 800 and played through loads of valve amplifiers, I've never found... I found my sound in them, but I don't find it to be consistent enough for me. I like consistency, and solid state gives me that. I'm tangenting off on that. I'm going this way, everybody, when I should be going that way. But yeah, I really don't know. What part of a hybrid kind of is best, or what was it? Sorry. What matters the most in a valve, hybrid valve amp? I really don't know. Because I have changed out preamp valves on valve state Marshalls, and they never really, they do sound slightly different. The amp that sounded the most different, changing out preamp valve to me that I experienced, was the Orange Micro Terror, the tiny little I forget how wattage that is. It's 20 watt or something. I don't know. I forget now, but that tiny little Orange Micro Terror, if you changed out the original preamp valve and put other valves in, it didn't radically and totally change it, but it did change the way the amp worked. Whereas when I tried that with a valve state, it didn't really do a great deal to the amp. I mean, it certainly did a tiny bit, but nothing really, really noticeable. I mean, you really had to listen. Whereas the Orange Micro Terror really changed. It was a bit weird. It was very strange. But I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that question. I don't really know what matters the most in a hybrid amp to make it, like, you know, most valvey, if that makes any sense. So I really don't know. So I do apologise. I give it the old college try, everybody, but I think I failed on that question. So I do apologise immensely for that. So sorry very much. I just don't know. I really don't know. But like I said, I find it really hard to believe that like one little preamp can change the amp radically. If you know what I mean, it can't change the amp to the point where it's like, oh, that's a totally different sounding amp just because I've changed the preamp. But the Orange Microtove is the closest to that. Speaking of changing character, I mean, in a Marshall Plexi, in the preamp section of a Marshall Plexi, you have V1, V2, and V3, and they're kind of the tone shaping part of that. Because you got your 2 or 4 power valves, your EL34s, and then you've got your 3 preamps, you know, V1, V2, V3, and then also in there you got in V1 or V2, I think V3 is the phase inverter, and then V1 I've been told is kind of like the most important kind of tonal shaping preamp valve in a Plexi. V1, that's the one you change if you want to alter the sound of the amplifier. And a really cool thing about flipping, like changing preamp valves, you don't have to rebias the amp. Preamp valves, you don't have to worry about rebiasing. You can just sort of like switch and switch those preamp valves out, and you don't have to worry about it. It's the power section, the power amp valves like the EL34s or whatever you have in that power section that needs biasing. The preamps are not so much. That's why you can get away with like in hybrid amps just changing the preamp without having to like, you know, worry about biasing or anything like that. But anyway, but yeah, I, like for instance in a Plexi, like V1 is kind of like the most important. That's the one you kind of change out for different preamps if you want like certain different sounds or more gain or lower gain or more low end or more high end or whatever, you know what I mean? You can kind of like, you can do a lot with V1. And then your phase inverter as well. And V2's got a little bit, but V2 I think is the most... I could be getting V2 and V3 mixed up. I forget. But, because I don't really delve into valve amps as much as I used to when I was like at Old Hat. I learnt a lot at Old Hat about valve amps and how they kind of work and stuff like that, because I was dealing with them every day. I wanted to be quite clued up on it. But because I haven't used a valve amp really since... my knowledge of it is kind of a bit rusty, so to say. But I like the Plexi being my favourite all-time valve amp. I know quite, you know, I kind of know a bit about them. I don't know loads about them, but yeah. So, but they really alter the sound of a Plexi, especially if you change V1. V1 is very, very makes the amp very not massively different, but it does make it different. Anyway, but yeah, coming back to the hybrid thing, I don't actually know. I really don't actually know. I mean, I can imagine it does something to the amp. It has to, but I can't think it does loads. I would say what makes a valve state... But saying an amp sounds like a valve amp is relative to the person hearing it. I mean, I've never really... And I still stand by this statement. People have reamed me about it for years on YouTube and just literally... I've had some really horrific comments about this statement I'm about to make, but I've never heard the difference. I don't hear what a valve amp gives me that my MGs or my Katana or my Orange can't give me. You know, there's nothing that a valve amp can give me, and I've played so many of them that my MG can't. And my MG and my Orange and my Boss are consistent, whereas a valve amp isn't. And having owned a small box and a JSM 800 in the past, I hate inconsistency in sound. I like to be able to plug in the amp and set it, forget it, and don't have to worry about kind of like, you know, it's starting to sound a bit different, I better go back and tweak it. I like to be able to just kind of like plug in, play, and forget about it. So, but like I say, I've never heard what a valve amp gives that my other amps, the amps that I've got here, don't give. You know, give me. It's like, you know, because it's all relative. It's all relative to the human and the way we perceive sound and the way we hear things. It's not up to one person to say it's right, wrong, or whatever. It's just down to your personal experience and your personal opinion. And like I say, I've been told I should give up playing guitar if I don't know the difference between a valve amp and a solid state amp, and I've been told that I'm an idiot and I don't deserve to even play guitar and all this kind of lovely things just because I don't You know, I don't hate valve. There seems to be kind of like a preconceived idea because I don't use valve amps. I hate valve amps. I don't hate valve amps. I just don't. I prefer solid state over them because I like consistency, and solid state gives me consistency. And you know, and I have a, you know, anyway, that's a different story altogether. But yeah, anyway, I ramble on, everybody. But yeah, so I don't really know what matters the most in a hybrid amp to get that kind of like valve sound. I would highly doubt it's all down to that little preamp. I would expect more it's down to kind of like components and the way the amp is voiced more than anything, myself personally. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 1 part B, which is, and also question 3 kind of comes back to this, so I'm just going to kind of touch on it and then come back to it in a bit because I want to answer both questions. They're slightly different but kind of the same. Okay, so question 1 part B is, do you have any advice that might help someone learning guitar and how to play more soulfully? Okay, so learning guitar, my number 1 advice is to learn only what you want to learn and don't dive into theory or anything you don't want until you feel you want to or you're comfortable doing so. There's no point learning or trying to learn something you don't want to learn because you'll forget it in a week. You know, there's no point learning, you know, crazy amounts of theory if you're never going to use them in a practical way, if that makes any sense. Because anything that you learn that isn't incorporated practically in the guitar is wasted knowledge. You'll never use it and it'll eventually go from your brain and you won't remember it and then you have to relearn it. So my advice to anybody is just learn what you want to learn. If you want to learn Green Day songs for your entire time, do that. If you want to learn this, you want to learn that. You know, but learn within your means. If you've just started playing guitar, don't jump into learning Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen. You know what I mean? Start, you know, learn within your means of where your ability is and start there. You don't want to be kind of diving in the deep end because you're just going to upset yourself and get disappointed when you can't do certain things because you haven't got to that stage yet. Because playing guitar and learning to play guitar is a very time-consuming, no shortcuts, no quick route thing to do. You know, there's no way you can learn to play guitar quickly. You know what I mean? You just can't. You know, it takes years and years and years and years and years. And you hear people like Steve Vai saying this, and you hear people like, you know, so many of these amazing guitarists all say, well, yeah, I worked at it. It didn't come overnight. I had to really work and work and work and work and work at it for it to actually eventually kind of work out. So, yeah, so advice to kind of like, you know, and again, I'm going to come back to this in question 3 when I get to it. But, that might help somebody learn what you want to learn, and importantly, learn songs, and learn songs not of just one genre. Dive into other genres that interest you. So if it's kind of like if you started out learning kind of like say, well, I'll give you an example of from my own perspective. I started out learning pop punk songs like Green Day and Offspring and stuff like that. And then from that, I started to dive into other things like Guns N' Roses and started to kind of like learn kind of sweet. The first thing I learned was really fiddly was sweet. Well, actually, the first thing I learned that was fiddly was the Godfather theme that Slash plays on the Use Your Illusions tour. And then I started to learn Sweet Child of Mine, and I couldn't play them, but I wanted to go that way. And that was about, I don't know how long that was into playing guitar, but I started off doing just basic power chords, then into something a bit more complex, nothing over the top. I definitely wasn't playing with my means at that point because I couldn't play that kind of thing. I struggled to do it. And then kind of like I after a couple of years, I dived into Yngwie Malmsteen and I dived into Jimi Hendrix and obviously John Frusciante. And then obviously there was stuff like Steve Ray Vaughan and Rory Gallagher. And then Bob Marley. I love reggae. And there's also African guitar style called soukous. Is gorgeous. It's one of my favourite styles of guitar. It's absolutely stunning. You know, and then learning kind of metal stuff as well. I had a big kind of like metal phase where I learned Metallica and Megadeth and stuff like that, and Pantera, stuff like that. And just to kind of learn whatever takes your fancy. If you hear a song and you go, oh, I really like the sound of that, learn it. Regardless of like, you know, the genre, just learn it. You know, because I have a bit of an affinity for certain kind of pop tunes because they have a certain melody to them that I absolutely adore. You know, it really appeals to my kind of like melodic kind of like brain, if you will, that side of my brain, that melodic side of my brain. That certain like pop tunes will appeal to it, and I've learnt those songs. I've learnt the chord progressions from it, just to kind of like, because I want to know what the chord progression was and how it kind of like how it works. I really like that. But so just learn anything and everything, and just be a sponge more than anything. Just take everything in, and take, you know, you need to be able to take kind of criticism as well from people saying that you're okay at this, but you need to get better at this. Try this, this, and this, and never take anything as an offence unless somebody's being just generally horrible to you, which can happen sadly in the musical world, where people can just be generally nasty to you just because. But what I would say is just like, you know, forget if someone's been nasty to you, just ignore them, zone out, go to a happy place. But anybody who's got some constructive criticism, take it on board. You know, you need to take these things on board. You need to take well, maybe you should try this. Oh yeah, because you know it might work out for your best. Because the thing is because you do need to try everything. You do need to try things to know that it won't work in the first place. There's no point just kind of dismissing something offhand just because. You know what I mean? You definitely want to try everything you can, because you never know. You never know. There's been a few things in the past where I've been doing something and somebody said, if you do it like this, it might be a bit easier. And I've kind of gone, no, I'm going to do it my way. And then I go off and secretly try it their way and it actually works. So that kind of was a very humbling experience for me to go, actually, yeah, you need to listen to people. You can't just do it yourself. You need to you can do it yourself to a certain extent, but you need a guide there to help you the rest of the way, which is kind of what my idea of a guitar teacher should be. Is more of a guide than a teacher. You know, a guitar teacher is somebody who's going to point you in the right direction and say, right, now you need to go this way. You know, I can't do it for you, but if you go this way and you go down that path, you'll eventually get to where you kind of want to be. So yeah, that's my idea of what guitar. I don't like guitar teachers who kind of like force their technique and opinions on students, and I've seen that a lot, and I've heard that a lot. And I've never had a guitar teacher, so I luckily didn't experience like the egotistical world of guitar teaching that can be. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're all like that, but I have heard horrific stories of like, you know, he tried to do, I wanted to learn this, but he was teaching me this or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I wanted to learn that song, but I wasn't able to, I wasn't allowed because of this, that, and the other, you know. So my advice to, like, you know, for somebody learning how to play guitar is just learn what you want to learn. And how to play more soulfully. I mean, that comes with time. That's something you cannot rush, and there is no learning curve for that. It just happens throughout time. It's just one of those things that will eventually come with time. It took me a long, many, I mean, I'm playing guitar 17 years, and it took me a long time to be able to actually feel what I played. And I always wanted to feel what I was playing, but for the longest time, I could play, and there was glimmers of it, but it was never there. So whereas now, every time I pick up a guitar, I can feel it. If you know what I mean. There are days where I can't, and they're just bad days on guitar, but it's sad that we all get. But playing more soulfully just comes with time. You've just got to find your voice and your sound that makes you express. And coming back to the whole amp thing, like that sound that I need to express myself lives in this amp and my MGs and my katana. You know what I mean? That sound that makes me go, I can really feel that. Because your sound is massively important. You need to be able to feel your sound. You know, you need to feel that, and it needs to inspire you. Which, again, one of the things why I don't like inconsistency in amplifiers is like, I don't want to get the sound I want, and then halfway through playing something it totally change, and because it can throw me off. You know, it can throw me for a loop, and I don't really like the idea of that. So sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, aren't I? But yeah, that's what I would say, is just learn what you want to learn. If you want to learn, then learn everything. Learn anything and everything you want to learn. You know, if you want to learn reggae, go for it. If you want to learn funk, go for it. If you want to learn pop, go for it. You know, don't be stuck in kind of like one genre just because. You know what I mean? Learn so much, because it really helps you in the long run understand and feel music more. And Dick Dale said something once, which was really cool. He said, like, you know, learn everything, because one day you might have to play it for free. And I was like, that's such a cool line. So and Dick Dale knew his stuff. Dick Dale knew. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on from that now for a moment and come back to it at question 3, because question 3 kind of touches on that as well. So yeah, that's what I would say though. Is like as playing soulfully, that will come with time. You just have to give it time. You have to be patient. You know, if someone learning guitar, just learn what you want. Don't be swayed by what people tell you should be learning. If you don't want to learn it, don't learn it. It'd be a waste of time. Learn what you want. Okay, so going to move on to question 2 now. So question 2. Have you tried an SX Strat copy? No. I've seen a lot about them, and I've heard they're really good, but I've never tried one. And one's never come up. I used to have an SX resonator, but I sold it because I was never playing it again. But you know, if I don't use something, I would prefer it to go to somebody who will use it than it just kind of sit around. But obviously there are exceptions to that rule, but it's not really a rule. But there are exceptions to that. But certain things, if it's just kind of like sat in a case or just sat not being used, I would much prefer it to kind of go to somebody who's going to use it and enjoy it. But yeah, I used to have an SX resonator, and that was gorgeous. That guitar was absolutely awesome, and it was really, really nice. But I bought myself a Honor acoustic. I did an intro jam with it recently. It's a massive acoustic, Dreadnought acoustic, and I bought that for 30 quid from a local second-hand shop because it looked like Rory Gallagher's acoustic. It's kind of got the 2 double dots on the fretboard, and it's like a Martin. And I love Martin acoustics, and I bought that, and immediately clicked with that acoustic more than I've probably ever clicked with any acoustic, barring my Tanglewood maybe, but even more so, this old Honor from the '90s, I think it is, and all of a sudden I found myself that was the only acoustic I was playing. I put my resonator away, and my Tanglewood is nearly dead. I've had that guitar for years, and it's had a pretty hard life, and it's kind of knackered now. It still works, but it's kind of hard to play. And this Honor, after it got fixed up by a local guitar luthier, it's just gorgeous. I absolutely adore that. It's just one of those acoustics that I'm not an acoustic guitar player by any stretch of imagination. I don't really enjoy playing acoustic that much, but if I'm gonna play an acoustic, I play that one, and I play that one so much it's a bit ridiculous. And I never thought I would find an acoustic that made me want to play it. You know what I mean? Because an acoustic was always kind of one of those things that I knew I had to have for recording. Or if I had to go out and do like a solo gig on my own, I would play acoustic. But I never really enjoyed it until I got that Honor. And it kind of really clicked with me, that guitar did. And it's always an open C. I love that. The guitar sounds gorgeous in open C. It's a big body. It's got really light. It's got gauge 10 strings on it. And it just really rings. In open C, it's just so easy to play. It's got a lovely action to it. The neck's gorgeous, and it's just got an awesome resonation, and it sounds amazing for a guitar amp, which is weird. Anyway, but yeah, back to the point. SX Strat copy. No, I've never tried it. I need to get T-shirts printed with "Beware Tangent Boy." Anyway, but yeah, question 2. I've ever tried an SX Strat copy. No, but if one ever came up and I could get it, I would get it because I've heard a lot of good things about them. But I've never seen one for sale anywhere nearby. I've seen them for sale miles and miles away, which I can't afford to go and get. But if one ever came up locally, I would get it just to find out, because I've heard a lot of good things about SX. Okay, so I hope that's this question. Tangent included. Okay, so we're going to move on to question 3 now. And so question 3 kind of goes back to question 1B in a way. So question 3 is this. What would you recommend to a young guitarist trying to keep the fire alive when it comes to learning a guitar? And again, it comes back down to that thing of learn what you want to learn. Do not be swayed by what people tell you should be learning, and learn what you want to learn. I never learned anything I didn't want to learn. You know, if somebody said, oh, you need to... Because I remember people telling me, oh, you need to start learning some... when I got into my mom's team, people said, you need to start learning some Steve Vai stuff and Joe Satriani stuff. And I tried, and I just didn't like it, so I stopped. And there was some other bands as well. You know, if you like Megadeth, try to learn some Slayer or something like that. And it didn't click. It didn't click with me, so I'd never bothered. So, and to keep that passion alive, you've got to constantly kind of like to find another reason to want to play. You know what I mean? Like, you know, or a different instrument. You know what I mean? Like for instance, like today, the intro jam was done on the Jaguar because somebody mentioned in a comment that they wanted to see the Jaguar again, and so I wanted to accommodate that and use the Jag in today's. And it's gone really dark because it's horrifically dark outside. It's absolutely pouring it down, and it's getting darker by the day. It's almost dark outside now. The vampires are coming out. Anyway, but yeah, I wanted to use the Jag in today's intro jam because somebody requested to see the Jag, and I'll do that. But I came in here, plugged the Jag in, and that intro jam came out of it. No thought put into it. It was in that guitar that it just inspired it. Will that have happened with a Stratocaster or my Revelation Les Paul? Probably not. You know, it was that guitar. So different instruments can inspire you in different ways, and it can rekindle your your love for playing guitar if you get a different instrument. And it's always a good excuse to go out and buy another guitar. I need it. I am losing inspiration. I need to buy another guitar. It's a great excuse. Trust me, it works as well. But yeah, so yeah, buying a different instrument of a different style that you wouldn't normally go to is really good as well, as long as it speaks to you. Because I love this Jaguar. This is my Jaguar. It's the only Jaguar I actually want, and it's just a Squire, but I love it to bits. You know. But buying different guitars and different guitars can make you play a different way. Like the way I play a Les Paul is a little bit different to the way I play a Strat. The way I play the Jag is different to the way I play a Strat because I have to baby the Jag because I have the original bridge on it. And if I hit it really hard like I hit Strats or Les Pauls, the strings go everywhere on the bridge and the guitar doesn't stay in tune. So I kind of have to approach the Jag in a bit more of a softly approach, which makes things a bit different when I play it. Whereas with a Strat, I know exactly what I can do with a Stratocaster. I know how hard I can hit it. I know how much tremolo abuse I can inflict on the guitar without it kind of going crazily out of tune. Obviously, there's variables in that. I know how much I can hit my Telecaster. I know how much I can hit my Les Paul, and it come back at me without kind of like being abusive towards the instrument, so to say. So yeah, but like I say, if you're starting to lose the inspiration for playing guitar, you have to find it anywhere you can. Either it being a different instrument altogether, different effects, different sound, different amp, different approach, different genres, different styles, all these different kind of things, different string gauges, wiring pedals that you've got in a different way. Just experimentation to find what inspires you, because if you're losing inspiration or you're losing the fire to actually and the want to play, it normally comes down to kind of like what is kind of like going on at a point in time. You could have like certain issues or whatever, and you need to find a way to kind of like escape into music so you can find that kind of freedom in it, and that will rekindle that spark and that love and that want, if that makes any sense. But you've got to you kind of got to find what it is you want yourself, because you are you. I can't say to you that you need to. If you do this and this, everything could be fine. I can't say that because that's not true. That's not reality. What I can say is just experiment with everything. Learn different genres, like I said in 1B, question 1B. Learn different genres. Reggae is a great style to learn because it's incredibly simply difficult. That's reggae's personified. It's so hard to play reggae properly. If you listen to reggae guitarists and try and emulate them and really listen to them, they are so hard to, like Bob Marley, the way they lean back on the beat and they're so relaxed and everything's so pulled back, it's really difficult. And also playing, and my friend Charlie talked to me about this a lot, where he pointed out in this reggae track it was playing, listen to when he doesn't play. And I was like, oh yeah, this guitarist in this song, I forget the song, but this guitarist is playing, and then he stops. And it's about 8 to 12 bars of him doing nothing, and then he comes back in again. And it's just amazing how much that adds. And again, I would have never have known that if I wasn't wasn't told that by my friend Charlie, and actually listen to it. And that's another thing as well. Really listen to music as well. Really, really listen to it, because it can it can fool you into thinking you know. Like, for instance, like for the longest time, I thought I knew I knew how to play certain songs, and then later on, I realised I wasn't playing it right at all. It's amazing how many times you'll go back and relearn songs that you thought you knew because you don't know them. It's quite incredible. But yeah, so just experiment with different things, different sounds, different approaches to the guitar. Slide guitar. Things that are going to challenge you, but not kill the enjoyment, if that makes any sense. You don't want something that's just going to be like, really, really difficult and you can't do, and then you just got to kill it. If you've been playing for like a year, I forget how long you've been playing for, but if you've been playing for like a year, you don't want to dive into trying to learn King Crimson, 21st Century Schizoid Man, middle section. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be learning within your means, again, like I said in 1B. Don't rush the gun. Give it time, have patience with it. It will all come in time. You just have to wait for it. You just have to be patient, and you have to put the work in. You have to really, you really have to work at it. There's no quick route. There's no shortcut. There is work, and more work. That's what it is. It's just time, and time. And it just takes a long, long time to get that kind of like thing. So just find things that you kind of want to learn and you want to do with the guitar. Ask yourself, what do you want out of the instrument? What do you eventually want to be able to do? And just go for that. For instance, like me, I want to be able to express myself to the point where people can understand what I'm feeling through the guitar. When I play the guitar, I want people to be feeling what I'm feeling at that point in time. I want to be able to express my innermost self through music, and I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere near there yet. But that's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm striving towards. I've got no desire to learn how to sweep pick. Again, I used to be able to do that. I can't do it anymore because I got bored of it. It wasn't what I wanted. It was what other people told me I had to learn, and I learnt it, and then I felt really disenchanted with it and dissatisfied with being able to sweep pick. It just didn't do anything for me. And shredding as well, like, I like to be able to play fast in a certain way, but I don't like full-on constant shred, if that makes any sense. I like to be able to play fast because it adds an element of intensity, and it has a certain feel to it when you do it in the right place at the right time. But doing it just because you can, I don't like that kind of thing. I like to be able to really, I really want to be able to express. Anyway, I'm going to move on because I've got another 3 questions today. I'm running out of time already because I'm kind of motor mouthing. But yeah, just learn anything and everything you want, not what anybody else wants. You are the most important thing when it comes down to learning guitar. Nobody else is. You are learning the guitar because you want to play it. Ergo, you learn what you want to learn and forget anything else. If you just want to learn Led Zeppelin songs, learn Led Zeppelin songs. If you just want to learn Jimi Hendrix, learn Jimi Hendrix. If you want to learn John Frusciante, learn John Frusciante. If you want to learn Steve Vai, start out within your means and work up to it. That's the kind of key to anything, is start out simple and work your way up to the more complex stuff. Don't jump in the deep end before you can swim. You're going to drown. So, just be careful. But always do what you want to do. The guitar is about you. It's not about anybody else. The guitar is a personal thing that we all love in a different way, and we all want different things from it, into a certain extent. So find out what you want and approach it that way and go after that. And that should rekindle your love and spark for it. And and just try loads of different things. Just try loads of different things, and you'll eventually, it'll bring back up. If you want, if that want is there, it will find you. That's what I want to say. But you have to kind of actively search for it, but it will find you at the same time. If that makes any sense. That probably don't make any sense, but hopefully you know what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to have to move on. I wish I could talk longer about that, but I can't because I'm going to run out of time and I've got another 3 questions to do. Okay, so So yeah, hope there's something in there for you. So moving on to question 4. Question 4 is, can you get a John Frusciante tone out of Boss Katana without any pedals, using distortion and wah in the amps? You can. You can't get John's wah tone, and you can't really get John's distortion tone. You can get close to the distortion tone, but it's never 100%. You can't get the wah tone because you need pedals for that crazy wah-wah sound. The one thing you can do, though, with the Boss Katana is get John's clean tone and then add pedals to it, like the DS2 and the Ibanez wah or another wah, like the Vox, for instance. But you have to get those pedals to do that. But the thing is, like, the Boss Katana, if you put it on the brown mode and run the gain low, all the way off, you get that kind of John Frusciante kind of cleanish tone. So you can get that John tone, and you can kind of get close to his distortion tone, but it's not quite right. You need the DS2 for that. The DS2 is an individually unique pedal that has a very unique voice, and you need that pedal, really. But the Boss Katana can make that thing behave, which is kind of a struggle sometimes. But you kind of want, if you're going to use the Boss Katana for John stuff, you want to be setting it up for his cleanish tone, for his core kind of tone. That's where you want to be setting the katana up, for that core cleanish tone, and then adding pedals to that to go the extra kind of like, steps to get John's tone. So yeah, you can get it, but it's only over approximation, but you can get his cleanish tone out of it. You can't get his wah tone. You can kind of get a distortion tone, but mainly you want to be setting up, if you've got a katana, you want to be setting up for his cleanish tone, and then adding pedals over the top of that. Okay, so yeah, hope that's a question. Moving on to question 5. I'm going to have to rock it because I'm afraid I might tangent again at some point. Okay, so question 5 is, what's your opinion on the Peavey Envoy 40-watt transtube amp? And I've got to say, well, I've got to have a drink first. I'm getting a dry throat. That's better. I've never tried the Peavey Envoy. I have never ever tried one. I came close, but I've never tried one, and that really is annoying because I've seen so many of them. And there was one for sale recently, but I couldn't afford it with one thing or another that I had to pay, and so I couldn't afford it, and it went, sadly. But I've never tried the Peavey Envoy, but I love Peavey amps. I've always loved Peavey amps. My first ever amp is a Peavey. It's the Peavey Radiant. It's sat just over there. But the Peavey Bandits, I've had 2 Peavey Bandits in my life. Both have been amazing. My only qualm with Peavey is the strong, clunky mid-range that can sometimes dominate the amp. Not all the time, but they've got very strong mids, Peaveys. And as much as I love my mid-range, the mid-range on Peavey sometimes can be a bit over-dominating. Whereas I like the mid-range on the Orange or the Marshalls or the Katana can be a bit more smoother and less blocky, if that makes any sense. But I still love Peavey amps. They're some of my favourite amps in the world, some of the transtube series especially. But yeah, I've never tried an Envoy, but I would like to. I remember trying a 2x12 stereo Peavey, and that was incredible. They're so loud though. That's the problem with these old Peavey amps. The volume of those things is just terrifying. They're just so loud, and in this day and age, you kind of struggle to be able to to be accepted with that kind of volume, which is kind of upsetting, to be perfectly honest. Because there's nothing quite like playing a loud amp. There really isn't. And that's kind of where you get that kind of real feel, if things are kind of loud, not ridiculously loud, but loud. When you can feel that kind of the air moving and stuff. But no, I've never tried the Peavey Envoy. I've tried quite a lot of Peaveys, and I've always liked them. There was one Peavey I didn't like, which was the Windsor. I think it's called the Windsor. It's like a valve head. I really didn't like that at all. I thought it was very fizzy, very very shrill sounding amp, and I didn't really like it. But I've tried a lot of Peavey amps and I've loved every single one of them. So I can imagine I would love the Envoy because I've seen it and it does look so cool. And you said you had turned yours into 2 heads. You had 2 of them. You turned them into heads, which is really cool. But But yeah, maybe one day. Hopefully, I'll get my hands on one. I really want to try the new Bandit. I don't like the look of the new Bandit as much as I like the old Red. I think the Red Stripe was the coolest looking Bandit, but I would like to try the new Bandit at some point. As for the Envoy and a few other Peavey amps, I'd like to try as well. But yeah, I'm going to do a video soon on my Peavey Rage because I've never really done anything with it, and I want to do a video with it. So next week I might do a video on my Peavey Rage because it sounds immense. I love it. Anyway, but yeah, I've never tried a Peavey Envoy, but hopefully in the future I will. And if I get my hands on one, I will do a video on it and yeah, have a bit of a natter about it and this that, and the other. Because there was one that came up for sale recently, and like I said, I just with all the things I had to pay for at the time, I couldn't afford it sadly. So I will keep my eyes peeled though. I will keep my eyes peeled. Anyway, but yeah, so I can't really comment too much on the Envoy because I haven't tried it, but I do love Peavey amps. I really do. Okay, so moving on to question 6 now. Would you ever consider doing a breakdown of Curtis Mayfield's playing style to get to the root of where Jimi Hendrix and John Frusciante's style originated? I have pondered this idea. I have thought about it, and it has come up a few times in my head of going, I could trace it back, because you can trace it back to Curtis Mayfield, and then from Curtis Mayfield, where can I trace it back from there? And I've always wanted to do kind of like a, you know, where did this style originate kind of video series, if you will. So like, for instance, like, if you look at kind of like, say, nu metal, you can trace kind of nu metal back to bands like Metallica. They can trace Metallica back to bands like Diamond Head and Motorhead. They can trace Motorhead back to Black Sabbath, and you can trace Black Sabbath back to Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. Although, well, not really Led Zeppelin because they were kind of around the same time, but you know what I mean, that kind of riff-a-rama rock. And then you can trace Jimi Hendrix back to Curtis Mayfield, and you can trace Curtis Mayfield back to people like B.B. King, who again was around the same time but kind of different. And then you trace B.B. King back to people like Son House, and then you can trace Son House back to, you know, the Field song. So you've got all this kind of linear. That was a bit convoluted and wrong, some of that, but hopefully you kind of you know, kind of know what I mean. Like, you know, you can kind of trace music back to where it kind of comes from, its roots of music, so to say. So, you know, you can trace all sorts of stuff back. You can trace kind of like certain, like if you look at Eddie Van Halen doing his crazy dive bombs and all this kind of crazy feedbacky stuff, you can trace that back to Jimi Hendrix, which then you can trace back to people like Buddy Guy, you know, because Buddy Guy was doing all this crazy weirdness with his guitars back in, you know, before Jimi was doing it. And then there was people like Howlin' Wolf who were doing weird things with guitars, and you know, John Lee Hooker, you know, John Lee Hooker wasn't really kind of doing that kind of thing, but kind of like bluesy riffing stuff. You know, if you listen to stuff like Never Get Out of These Blues Alive or Got My Mojo Working and stuff like that, you can kind of hear elements of like where it kind of like extends back to and extends up to, if you know what I mean. Because even now, like, you know, if you listen to trying to think of a modern day artist, you know, well, anybody, you can trace anybody back, and I always feel it's really important that you kind of like respect and know where your favorite genre comes from. Like, for instance, like I'm a big blues rock fan, so I can trace it back to people like Son House and Robert Johnson, you know, and even before that, you know, you can trace it back to to Field Chants and those kind of songs from, you know, from that period of time. So, you know, then it goes back before that, you know, to all sorts of other stuff, all sorts of other kind of music. So it's really important. I've always kind of wanted to delve into that kind of thing. I might do it, but I've kind of like I've kind of toyed with the idea of it, and I've kind of played with the idea of it, and I've kind of thought about how to do it, and I've always kind of struggled with kind of like getting a clear idea in my head of how to structure it, if you know what I mean. I kind of wish I hadn't mentioned Led Zeppelin in Black Sabbath, because that made no sense whatsoever. My brain's kind of torturing me over that decision because I didn't mean to say that, and I just kind of said Led Zeppelin, even though you can't trace Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin because they were two kind of separate things, but they're around at the same time. Whereas Black Sabbath were originally a blues band called Earth, and then they switched to that kind of heavier sound, you know, and you got Deep Purple as well. I mean, Deep Purple started off as more of a pop band, and then Richie Blackmore wanted to steer it in more of a rocky direction, and then you get, you know, Deep Purple in rock, you know, and then you get all sorts of, you know, heavier stuff like that, and then Black Sabbath just went the extra mile and, you know, went heavier than that. And then then from there you got bands, all sorts of different bands of, you know, the 70s, and you got the punk bands and of the late 70s into the 80s, you know, where you got, like, you know, thrash metal and metal, you know, all that kind of thing. I'm digressing. I tangent again, but yeah, the whole Curtis Mayfield thing, because you can trace even, you know, it's quite incredible if you look at John Mayer, you can trace John Mayer's playing back to Stevie Ray Vaughan, and you can trace Stevie Ray Vaughan's playing back to some of the Kings like Albert King, and then, you know, and from Albert King you can get to people like again Son House and previous, but you can also go from John Mayer to Stevie Ray Vaughan to Jimi Hendrix to Curtis Mayfield, because they've all got that. If you listen to kind of like, you know, some Curtis Mayfield tracks, they inspired stuff like Little Wing. And then from Little Wing, you've got stuff like, is the song called Life Without You that's Stevie Ray Vaughan? I forget, I haven't listened to Stevie in ages. But, which is interesting because I'm going to have to soon because I can't tell you. But, but yeah, like, if you listen to some of like Stevie's ballads, I think Life Without You, I swear it's called Life Without You, that's very Hendrix inspired, but it's also Curtis Mayfield. And then when you listen to some of John Mayer's stuff, Waiting on the World to Change, or Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, it's got elements of Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, and Curtis Mayfield. You know what I mean? All these people kind of linear back. It's quite incredible when you really start to pick it apart and look back at where these things come from. It's quite incredible that although these artists are massively original, they do have traits of certain people. Like Jimmy had traits of Buddy Guy, B.B. King, Wes Montgomery, Curtis Mayfield, you know, John Lee Hooker, Eric Clapton, you know, because he loved Eric Clapton. A lot of these blues guys, and also some of the R&B stuff like Little Richard, you know, stuff like that. So Jimmy was an amalgamation of all these different styles, and I remember listening to an interview with Mitch Mitchell, and Mitch couldn't believe what Jimmy could do. Like, at any moment, if you said to Jimmy, "Oh, can we do like a Wes Montgomery style jam?" Jimmy would be like, yeah, like this, and he would just play it, and it would sound in the style of Wes Montgomery. Or if they said, "Oh, can we do some Buddy Guy-esque kind of thing?" And he'd be like, yeah. So he'd just do Buddy Guy. It'd sound like Buddy Guy or John Lee Hooker or something like that, or anything like this. And playing acoustic guitar as well, you can hear Jimmy on acoustic guitar in that version of Hear My Train Coming. That sounds like John Lee Hooker. Yeah, I mean, it really has that vibe of John Lee Hooker. It sounds like Never Gonna Get Out of His Blues Alive. And again, that's the thing, is you can trace all these people back. Like Peter Green, you can trace him back to B.B. King, and from B.B. King you can trace back to, again, Son House and Howlin' Wolf. And then you can trace them back to, you know, so many places. It's incredible how music has a lineage, and it's incredible, really. Like, when you start really looking into this, it's incredible how far it goes back. Joe Bonamassa, if you look at Joe Bonamassa, and you can trace him back to Eric Johnson, and you can trace Eric Johnson back to to Jimi Hendrix, and you can trace Jimi Hendrix back to Curtis Mayfield. And you know, it's incredible. There's like a hierarchy. Well, it's not a hierarchy, but there's kind of like this like tree with loads of roots, and everybody's in these roots. You know what I mean? And it's quite incredible. You know, you can trace back people like Kirk Hammett to Jimi Hendrix. You know, when he's doing all his crazy dive bomb things. I've got a DVD of Metallica doing the Cunning Stunts DVD, and there's one set after For Whom the Bell Tolls. Kirk's going mental with his whammy pedal and a wah-wah, and he's doing all these dive bombs. Comes from Jimi Hendrix. You know, Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock in '69. That's where, you know, and Jimmy was doing that before that anyway. You know, and you know, that was his thing, feedback and crazy things. And then the next person who took that to the next level was Van Halen. You know, Eddie came along in '74 and took what Jimmy had left off and took it to the next level with tapping and kind of like, you know, harmonic dive bombs and stuff like that. And then from Eddie Van Halen, you got some different guitarists. You know, Steve Vai. You know, took it to the next level. Joe Satriani before that. You know, Eric Johnson to an extent. You know, and then you kind of get other guitarists like, you know, modern Yngwie Malmsteen. And then you get kind of modern shredders, Guthrie Govan, who have taken it even kind of further. You know, and it's quite incredible when you really, really start to strip back the layers of like a person, how they play. It's quite incredible how far you can trace back their style. You can, and invariably it all comes back to the blues. You know what I mean? You know, because the blues is the core of rock music, metal music, alternative music. It's the core of it. You know, if you listen to Alice in Chains, you can hear Jerry Cantrell doing stuff like, you know, doing the Chuck Berry thing. Again, you can trace that back to people like Robert Johnson, who were doing ZZ Top. I mean, how many, you know, that's a Robert Johnson thing. You know, yeah, it's Robert Johnson, and also kind of like I say, that Curtis Mayfield style that Jimi kind of took further, and then, you know, John Frusciante picked up on in, you know, in that, you know, that kind of embellishing chord. I don't know if you'll be able to hear that, but you know, that kind of thing. It all traces back. You know, you can, you know, you could. I mean, that's kind of fuel for the argument of if is anybody original. You know, are we just are we literally just products of what we've listened to in history? Which is, yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think Jimi would be the first person to say that, like, you know, where he got certain things from, like Curtis Mayfield and Buddy Guy and B.B. King and Albert King and all these blues guys, and, you know, certain things he took from Eric Clapton and stuff like that. You know, you can hear all these things, and I think people like that are always the first people to kind of turn around and say, oh yeah, well, I nicked this lick from here, I nicked this lick from there, and, you know, I instead of kind of doing it this way, I did it that way, you know, and yeah, and that's the way you make it your own. And John Mayer, I always come back to that John Mayer saying, I always find a way to get back to it. But John Mayer said that thing, didn't he? He says you sound like yourself when you fail to sound like your heroes, and that's very true. You know, John Mayer became himself during the Continuum era because I think he was trying to sound like Steve Ray Vaughan. You know what I mean? Because if you listen to Stevie's tone and the way Stevie phrases things, and you listen to John Mayer and the way he phrases things, they're almost identical. You know what I mean? You know, there's a lot of Stevie in John. You know what I mean? And if you listen to Jimi and listen to John Frusciante, there's a lot of Jimi Hendrix in John Frusciante. You know, there's a lot of B.B. King in Peter Green. There's a lot of trying to think. There's a lot of Richie Blackmore in Yngwie Malmsteen. You know, Yngwie Malmsteen will never admit that. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you kind of really start stripping back the layers of music. It's incredible how far you can trace back your style and where it comes from. And again, like I say, it comes down to that whole kind of thing, is like, you know, what's originality? At the end of the day, has everything been done? Are we just kind of reinventing things? But at the end of the day, who cares? If you enjoy it, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be something different you can do. But you know, I think Rick Beata did a video on, like, you know, has every chord progression being played? Yeah, most probably. But the fact of what you can do with 4 chords or 3 chords that nobody has done before is incredible. If you look at, you know, Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix, it's just a root note and, you know, kind of like a 7th kind of chord. You know, no one had ever done that before. No one had ever, and it's so simple. It's only 3 notes. You know, but it's so simple, but no one had ever done it before. You know, it's quite incredible. You know, Eric Clapton having a cranked up blues breaker and having distortion and sustain on a record. You know, no one had ever done that before, but it's so simple. It seems so simple, but at the time it isn't. You know, it's incredible. But anyway, I'm going to have to stop talking. But I have thought about doing something like that. Yeah, I like the idea of kind of like doing a kind of a lineage videos, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, where did this style originate and who was the originator of it? And I don't think you'd ever find the originator of that style. I think, because it's an amalgamation. We're all amalgamations of our heroes. But all we ever do is stand in the shadows of our heroes, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Because they stand in the shadows of their heroes, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of. Everyone's overshadowed by their heroes because that's what heroes are, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, I stand in the shadow of John Frusciante and Jimi Hendrix, you know, because they're my heroes. But, you know, John Frusciante stands in the shadow of Jimi Hendrix and whoever else. And Jimi Hendrix stand in the shadows of Buddy Guy and B.B. King and Curtis Mayfield. And they stand in shadows of Son House and Howlin' Wolf, and Howlin' Wolf stand in the shadows of other people, you know what I mean? It's this strange lineage of music, and that's what makes music so awesome. Anyway, but yeah, I have tinkered with the idea of it, but I haven't figured out a way to do it yet. But I have thought about the idea, and that's kind of like what I would like to do, is sit down one day and have a bit of a natter about where you can trade, which I've kind of done today, but kind of a bit more in depth. Because I'm just speaking off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd like to do something like that at some point. Anyway. I hope that's answered your question. I'm going to have to finish now because I've nearly run out of time on the camera. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'd like to ask you a question. Here's a question for all you people of the tube, because this is I need to know. Is there anything you would like to see more of on this channel? Because I want to know what would you like to see more of? Would you like to see more amp demos, pedal demos? What would you like to see more of on this channel? Because I really want to know. So yeah, leave me comments in the comment section below what you would like to see more of, and yeah, and like I said, oh yeah, and also if you want to submit a question for Q&A Wednesday, description box below, there's an email link, and also there's my website link. On the website, if you go to the website, you can go to the forum section. And on the forum section, there's an Ask Dave, and you have to register yourself to access the forums. So if you don't want to do that, there is an email link as well in the description box below. Okay, so yeah, like I say, people, the tube, let me know if there's anything you want to see more of on this channel. Like I say, if you want to submit a question, the description box below gives you all the links, as well as links to my Facebook, Instagram, my music on Bandcamp. And yeah, I'll see you again on Friday. Friday, I'm going to finish up the Batacaster, because there's a few little bits I need to do to it to finish it, and then it's finished. So Friday's video is going to be about the Batacaster. We're going to finish that guitar, and we're going to have a good playing session with that guitar. So yeah, I will see you again on Friday for that, and then once that guitar's finished, we'll move on to another project. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I hope you answered your questions okay, and I'll see you again on Friday to revisit the absolutely battered Batacaster, and I'll see you again then. So have a great morning, afternoon, good evening, and goodbye now.